Hi and welcome to the first New Day coaching video. And what I want to talk about today is one of my favourite models about how we learn. It's called the conscious competence model. It's been around for about 50 years now. First appeared in the late 60s, early 70s. No one really knows who came up with it. There are four people that are commonly linked to it: Martin Broadwell, Paul Curtis, Philip Warren and Noel Birch. But I like it because A, it's simple and I like simple, and B, it really gets to the bottom of how we learn and also why people give up on new tasks and new ventures into learning a new skill, and where external support is really important and why it's really important. So basically it divides the learning process into these four sections, and pretty much when you start learning a new task, you're in this unconscious incompetence box. Now, don't take incompetence to be derogatory or anything like that. It purely means you're lacking in the skills needed to deliver this new task. And basically you move around the track as you learn. And everything you do, all the skills and talents you have, you're somewhere on this curve with those. And if there's stuff you're good at, then you'll be on the right-hand side in the competence boxes. I'm going to use learning to drive to explain how this works and how development fits into this model. So we start in this unconscious incompetence mode. And essentially this is where we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's involved in this new task in learning to drive. We might think it's not going to be straightforward. It's obviously difficult because I'm going to have to take lessons and I can't just jump into a car and know how to drive. So there's obviously some process involved, but we don't know what's involved. And we've seen experts drive, probably our parents or other family members, and they've made it look easy. And for many other tasks that we see now, we'll watch YouTube videos or we'll watch videos about people doing these tasks and they make it look easy. So we get this sort of slightly warped sense of how simple this is going to be. I mean, after all, if our parents can drive, how hard can it be? So this is before we've sat behind the wheel and we think it's going to be tricky, but it's not going to be that bad. And then we take our first step into actually learning how to drive. We sit behind the wheel for the first time. We have our first driving lesson. And all of a sudden we are overwhelmed with tasks and things to think about and things to do. And they're all happening fast and they're all happening at the same time. Both hands are doing different tasks, indicating, changing gears, steering. We're looking at mirrors, we're looking at swing mirrors, we're looking at the speedo, we're looking at the gear stick to work out what gear we're in. Our feet are doing different things. One of them's making us go faster and go slower. We're having to use indicators. All these things are happening while we're moving along a road with other people on the roads and people walking alongside, cyclists, horses, dogs, all sorts of things. We are overwhelmed with stuff. We realise just how big a task this is and we become conscious of how little we can do and how much there is to do. All of a sudden we know how much we don't know, and it's really, really daunting. And that drop from this unconscious incompetence where we don't really know how much is going on and we think how hard could it be, to this conscious incompetence where all of a sudden we realise how hard it can be and realise all the stuff that's going on and actually we can't do it and we feel a fraud and we feel a failure, is coupled with the fact that learning any task at the start is really slow. It takes a while for us to pick up speed in our progress. So we're given this amazing wealth of information and things to do with all of our limbs as we're driving a car, and nothing feels to be improving as we move along. But if we stick at it, we can move along this curve. The problem is, this is the place where people give up. I don't know the stats about driving, but I know if you're learning an instrument or trying to go to the gym or get fit, this is where you give up, because all of a sudden you've gone in with these great hopes and you've just felt overwhelmed, swamped, and a bit of a failure, and we give up at that point. This is where your driving instructor helps, because they break the task down, they do some of the things for you, they make the task easier, and they give you encouragement and push you and drive you forward, if you'll excuse the pun, until you get to the point where you can pass your test. And when you pass your test, you'll find yourself in the conscious competence box. And what this means is we now have all the skills. We can drive along absolutely fine. We know we're coming up to a junction. We need to check our speed. We need to check our mirrors. We need to check what gear we're in. We need to position ourselves on the road. We might need to indicate, and we need to make the maneuver. We can do all of these things because our brains started to connect the pathways together, and we can start to learn the muscle memory that allows us to do these things. But it's still very conscious. We still have to think about the sequence of events, and we still have to think about what we're doing very closely. But this is the stage when you pass your test. Once you are competent, once you have the skills and you are able to drive, you're safe to drive, and you're given this test and you're passed to drive on the roads. And you can stop there. But what happens over time, and what happens with any skill, is if you keep practicing it, so if you keep driving, or you keep playing on a musical instrument, or you keep speaking your foreign language, you end up gaining more and more skill and more competence until you end up in what we call unconscious competence. And this is where you perform without thinking. You don't think about how you do the task, you just do it. It's second nature, it's innate. That's not me driving, but I've been driving for a long time now, and I quite often get to the end of a journey, especially when I do regularly, without really knowing or remembering how I got there, just because it's all been on autopilot. I'm not thinking about how to drive. I don't think about how to drive, I just drive. If I had to think about how to drive, I'd probably get flustered and stuck because I'd be back in all those things that I have to do in order. Whereas when it's second nature, it just happens. And this is the same with a language. With this part of a language, you're thinking in that second language. You're not translating back into your first language and then translating into the second language. You're just thinking in that language. As a musical instrument, you might be able to sight read a piece now and just play it without having to practice or without having to think. With a sport, you don't think about how hard you're going to kick the ball or how you're going to hold your hand on the ball to seam the ball in a cricket match, or how to hit a backhand. You just do it. It's second nature. The muscle memory is there, and that's when you're in unconscious competence. That's a very quick run through how the model works. You can read more about it in the article I've linked this video to. But what happens at each of these transitions is that you move into a different phase of learning. And that first phase, that move from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, as I say, is the one where people often give up. And this is the one where external support is absolutely critical. If you're learning to drive, you get a driving instructor. If you're learning a foreign language, you get a language teacher. If you're learning a musical instrument, you get an instructor in the particular musical instrument. If you're learning a new sport or going to the gym, you get a trainer to help you with the skills needed. And if you're making personal development journeys, changing the way you want to behave or the way the world interacts and how you approach the world, this is where a therapist or a coach can help you, because what they can do is break the problem down. They can take away some of that feeling of being overwhelmed by taking some of the things away from you and breaking the things down so you deal with small parts. They can encourage you and tell you that you will get through it and give you that confidence that no matter how daunting it is at this moment, you've got someone who's got your back. The other transitions both have value in talking to other people. I mean, if you look at unconscious competence, why do top sports people still have coaches? Because they can still develop, they can still improve their skills. So all the way through this process, having an external support is really valuable. But that first bit, when you first start out, having someone to support you through that is absolutely critical. And if you're on the journey and trying to make some personal changes in how you look at the world, in maybe how your inner critic talks to you, in how you're dealing with certain challenges, and you need someone to talk to, look into getting a coach. This isn't just a pitch to come and talk to me, but look into getting a coach who can help you through that. Hope you've enjoyed this. It's a very quick run through the model. I say one of my favourite models, really simple. If you want to know more, drop me a line and get in touch.